Hello, my name's Michael Conneely, and there's some really good stuff coming up now in this astrology and healing newsletter for October 2019. I think my key message and this and a load of detail are set out in the accompanying blog, the address of which is down below the YouTube display here. The key message is that these are difficult, cutting, divisive energies now, and there's lots of fighting politically and even in spiritual organisations. But there's a chance now to find and be the true you amid all the current huge energies of stress, divisiveness and pressure. So the call is to react to the divisive, stressful energies now, learn their lesson, and then amid them all, to be. Astrology provides invaluable perception, but so often it's formula that's sort of ranted out, trotted out, smashed out. So the key is to use the perception of the formula of astrology, and I'm highly trained in both Vedic astrology and also psychodynamic Western astrology and evolutionary Western astrology. Use the perception, the intellectual guidance, and then check out where you're left standing after hearing that. Are you being true to you in your life? Are you being true to yourself, to your destiny path, to the fates that we have to work with? That's why we're here this time, and that's where Vedic astrology is so powerful in offering that declaration. Are you, amidst all the conflicts, pressures, divisiveness and fighting that's going on now, being connected to your being, avoiding trying to be the scripts of your parenting that you grew up with as a little boy or girl, the scripts imposed by your culture, your country, your job, your education? So if it's any help, I can tell you that amid all the pressures of the Saturn K2 or Saturn South Node transiting conjunction in my 6th house of health and healing, I became quite ill from last October as a result of overwork, trying to do everything, ignoring warning signs and not being amid all the pressures. And I became quite ill. And really, I was living in a way that wasn't in tune with the inspiration that was actually coming through. And that's the key now, as I'll be saying in this newsletter. But now I'm feeling a lot better, well, and on the route to being, trying to promote a happy home here in the beautiful west of Ireland. The sun is shining, the cattle are lowing, it's utterly beautiful. And trying also to do my job creatively, teaching Western and Vedic astrology, doing readings which comprise both Western and Vedic astrology, because both are needed. And also teaching about the ancient spiritual paths and alphabets of the ancient Irish and also the ancient Norse, which incidentally are in my genetic inheritance. And as a result of healing I've received, and I'll tell you what that is in a moment, I've now just on the brink of restarting the building work. We're building an extension to our house to act as an Airbnb, and where family can stay here, guests can stay here, and indeed people attending the Sacred West of Ireland tours that I started up this year have absolutely loved doing. I've taken people on 20 people to lovely, beautiful sacred sites around here. And the programme for next year, 2020, is now on my Druid Forest School website. And these two healings that were pretty life-saving, I feel, were firstly biodynamic osteopathy. I'd never heard of it before. I fell into it by chance. And I don't really understand it, but the sort of the new flow of spinal fluid connected my body, the different parts, in a healing way, and connected them to my inspiration, to my being. And strangely, the second, and this was again by chance, was from a wonderful special healer here in the west of Ireland, wonderful healing community, Transcendence Dance. And I can tell you, I'd always had a huge block on dancing, being brought up a strict Catholic boy, being destined to be a celibate priest, the body is wrong, all the Catholic teaching. And yet I felt the dance taught by Claire Louise Nifton here in County Sligo in the west of Ireland, the Transcendence Dance, helped bring out the true me and allowed me to be in that. And so I'm sharing all this to say that there are horrendous energies of conflict going on here. Look at what's happening in the UK Parliament. I'm aware, amazingly, of vicious attacks going on in Norse spirituality organisations and runes. Indeed, even in sort of groups purporting to be representing the ancient and wonderful spiritual paths and gods of the ancient Irish. There's terrible energies of conflict. But they've actually, in a sense, harmed me, but made me heal, do the right things for healing, and brought me to more of a state of being. And I'm sharing this with you in case this is of help amid the energies which I will be describing in this video and in my newsletter blog. So I can tell you that amid the pressure of the current Saturn K2 or Saturn South Node transit through Vedic Sagittarius, my 6th house of health, I became quite ill. But these two healing keys that chance offered me have made me find a better life and a better home and a better way of doing my job. So I feel there's really good and crucial stuff here about the astrology of October 2019. And I've just finished giving you my key message. So to summarise, my newsletter blog is in 9 parts. So I talk about the current Saturn K2 or Saturn South Node conjunction. I talk about the immensity of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the heavens that is forming as the Saturn K2 transit ends. I talk about Calcify Yoga, the energy of divisiveness that is in the heavens now. There's a big emphasis on this planets in Vedic sign of Virgo. October starts with Sun, Venus and Mars in Vedic Virgo. Understand the gifts and challenges of that. And then there's an emphasis on the sign of Vedic Libra, Venus and Mercury in Vedic Libra, a new energy. A Mercury retrograde just clicks in on the last day of the month. Note the dates of that, when it starts and when it will actually end. And I refer to the October lunations, the new moon we've just had, which runs to the full moon and then the next new moon. And then above all, I mentioned Jupiter. Jupiter is now moving forward again after a long retrograde, but he is moving into the Gandanta zone, the immaterial but potentially inspirational zone, identified only by Vedic astrology, only using the proper sidereal zodiac, which is the transition from a water sign to a fire sign. So Jupiter is ending his long transit through Vedic Scorpio and entering Vedic Sagittarius. Scorpio is water, Sagittarius is fire. So first of all, I'm referring to the Saturn K2 conjunction, the Saturn South Node conjunction. It's been affecting us all year. It's a very, very sharp energy. To understand how it will impinge on your life, check out the house in your Vedic birth chart it's transiting through. That's the sort of foundation of the understanding, and you can add more to that. And it's a high intensity, so tense, but there's a divine message that we need to sort out the area of life that we're getting wrong, because we're getting more and more tense about it. Saturn is our blocks to doing this. Oh, I can't possibly do that. I couldn't possibly make those changes. But K2 is divine inspiration. K2 cuts and destroys, but for divine purpose. And if he's blocked, he gets angry and we suffer. His energy gets angry and we suffer. So K2 tears at our illusions and blocks, but for spiritual purpose. And so, as I said in the introduction, move from being stressed out and even ill by trying to ignore the message of the Saturn K2 transit in whatever house Sagittarius is in your Vedic birth chart. And amid all that tension, move to being. Don't just rely on this perception and this huge amount of intellectual knowledge. It is invaluable, but it isn't the answer. The answer is healing and then being. Okay, but Saturn has now turned direct as K2 continues retrograde. K2 moving towards the beginning of Vedic Sagittarius. Saturn now moving direct towards the end of Vedic Sagittarius. And so very, very gradually, the intensity of the Saturn K2 conjunction will diminish. It will not go away. But Saturn is moving towards Pluto, who is stationary in Vedic Sagittarius. And the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is forming. And the whole point is that this needs to be understood, because negatively, Saturn-Pluto is an energy of implacable control. But positively, if you can understand it, you can create a strategy. You can use Saturn as a container for the atomic transformation that Pluto can be. So a new journey starts understanding and working with the Saturn-Pluto transit. Becoming more and more real, constantly revising and redefining your path in some crucial area or areas of life. In my case, health and the nature of my work, and completing the building work. Just a note to say that Calcify Yoga is in force in the heavens. Yes, the moon moves outside the Calcify. Calcify is where all the Vedic planets are to one side of the nodal axis. And it is absolutely wrong to apply the formula that if just one planet is a little bit on the other side of the axis, or just one planet is on the other side of the axis, Calcify's energy has ceased to exist. That's rubbish. It hasn't ceased to exist. And indeed, for the moon, as will occur in October, for the moon to be on its own, on the other side of the nodal axis from all the other planets, doesn't mean the Calcify energy has ceased. It means the moon is isolated and unsupported, Kimadruma Yoga. And this will affect our minds, and we need to say, this energy is in some way an illusion. We mustn't give into it. We must manage our minds. So the next point, point 4 in my blog, is Vedic Virgo. So October starts with Sun, Venus and Mars in Vedic Virgo. The Sun-Mars combination isn't nice. Mars gets messed up by being so close to the Sun, and to have Mars messed up and in Vedic Virgo can make us very critical. In the first few days, Venus is there in Vedic Virgo, and that's bad for love. Venus is most deeply fallen in the sign of Virgo, and so we could become very critical about our lover, our loved one. We need to be aware of that. But then on the 4th of October, Venus enters the next sign, Libra, which Venus rules. And the whole new energy of love, beauty and pleasure is possible. And Sun enters Vedic Libra on October the 18th. Now remember, Sun is fallen in Vedic Libra, and so maybe make the special effort to strengthen and to be aware of weaknesses in your Sun energy. Remember, Sun is the king of your kingdom. Remember, Sun is the divine charioteer who drives the chariot of self forward, and in his hands he holds the reins that go to the horses that pull the chariot of self. Those horses are the other planets. Now we'll have a weak charioteer with Sun in Libra. So the one horse might go on the rampage leftwards, and another horse might say, "Oh no way, I'm digging my hoofs in." So remember that the Sun, the divine Surya king energy, is weak from the 18th of October. There's a note on Vedic Libra, point 5 in the blog, which I do urge you to read. And on the very last day of October, Mercury turns retrograde, and the retrograde lasts until the 22nd of November. People vary on how they will experience Mercury retrograde problems. I personally experience them terribly in the realm of IT and posts and communications, because in my chart my Mercury is conjunct K2 and he's Lord of the 12th. So it's a very challenged Mercury. He's also Lord of the dangerous 22nd Reckoner and 64th Navamsha in my chart. So Mercury retrograde is terrible for me, but for some people it's not so bad. And do remember that Mercury retrograde phenomena do not end until Mercury has regained his pre-retrogradation position, which doesn't occur until the 8th of December. Okay, lunations. There's a very influential new moon in Hasta Nakshatra on the 28th of September. And new moons are so important for you and me to be aware of, because they're times of planting and sowing and new beginnings. Think back. Was there anything you were doing, like on the day of the new moon, that you want to develop and magnify and increase the benefits of as the moon moves to full on the 13th of October in Vedic Pisces in Revati Nakshatra? The big thing about the new moon, it was actually opposite Chiron, and I do want to say that I have known supremely remarkable cases of Chiron healing for people with planets in Hasta Nakshatra in Vedic Virgo this year. Absolutely amazing ones. One, a young man who was written off as somewhat dyslexic in school, and the language teacher begged him not to sort of enroll for learning a foreign language. But suddenly now this year, with Chiron opposite Hasta Nakshatra, Vedic Virgo, and with Rahu transiting Vedic Gemini, also ruled by Mercury, planet of communication, he suddenly gained a TEFL qualification teaching English as a foreign language, and he's learning a foreign language as well, Japanese, with its horrendous triplication of alphabets, etc. So do not underestimate Chiron healing. Never forget it. Always be aware of what is your Chiron wound, and when the energies are particularly good for healing your Chiron wound, and then quite likely becoming the healer of others, spreading out, radiating out the healer energy around the life area of your particular existential wound, Chiron. Okay, the outer planets, so Uranus retrogrades from 11 to 10 Vedic Aries, Neptune retrogrades from 22 to 21 Vedic Aquarius, Pluto stationary at 26 Vedic Sagittarius, Chiron retrograding from 4 to 2 degrees Western Aries in Ashwini Nakshatra, the healer's nakshatra. And so, for example, if you have planets in Libra opposite, you'll be feeling the benefits of Chiron transit. What else do I want to say? Oh yes, above all, the supreme major point of this newsletter, Jupiter. Now remember what I said in earlier newsletters, that we will all have some difficulty in connecting to the purity of divine Jupiter at this time. And that's because he transits through the Gandanta, across K2 in the heavens, and then Pluto and Saturn. And so none of us actually can naturally receive the blessing and expansion of the divine principle of Jupiter. And Vedic astrology is so wonderful that you can connect to the divine planet